The following is an exclusive presentation of WI Garden Media, the voice of Garden Talk Radio.
Coming up on the program today, we're going to talk about themed gardens as well as jobs that need to be done in the month of October in your garden. Our guest is online garden influencer April Ruis, and we'll answer your garden questions. The hour is full, so join us.
You are listening to the most informationally packed hour of garden-focused radio in the country and on the internet with your host, husband and wife team Joey and Holly Baird. This is the Gardening with Joey and Holly radio show.
And welcome to another edition of the Gardening with Joey and Holly radio show. Happy you have allowed us to take part of your day to entertain you and educate you. I'm your host, Joey Baird. Beside me is my wife, co-host, best friend, and gardening partner,
Holly Baird.
This program is for you, about you, to help your garden grow better, to maintain your landscape, grow healthier trees, make your grass look greener, as well as preserving what you grow. We thank you for taking time, whether you're listening to us on one of the 20 AM and FM frequencies broadcasting our program here in 2023 through our parent website, which is the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com. Underneath the Radio Season 7 tab at the top of the page, podcast replay. Thank you for downloading our in-studio video on our YouTube channel. Thank you so much. You want to be part of the program? You can do that. Send us an email, gardentalkradio@gmail.com. gardentalkradio@gmail.com, or you can give us a call toll free coast to coast at any time, 1-800-927-SHOW, 1-800-927-7469. We're going to get in the program and talk about themed gardens. And when we brought up this topic in our meeting, it's not a staff of people, just Holly and me. That's who puts this show on. We do everything from the marketing to the production and to sending out to the stations.
I was going to tell where it came from, but I guess you're going to.
Well, I'm just letting people know that we don't have a major staff. It's just me and you that make this thing happen each week, 35 weeks a year.
Our cat helps us too.
Tex, our cat, contributes in some form or fashion. I'm not sure how. But how did this particular topic of themed gardens originate?
Well, I've seen, different things on social media
which is always a safe place to find accurate information.
Garden inspiration. Okay. But then my friend Laura and I, she's the one who does all those voice things.
Yeah, you're tuned into the Gardening with Joey.
Yeah. Her and I went to go visit this labyrinth garden, which I'll explain what that is in a second, in West Bend, Wisconsin. If you're in Wisconsin, that's where we're based out of. And I was like, this is neat. And then there was certain plants that reminded me of a themed garden, not just a labyrinth garden, but then also certain types of plants that reminded me of a themed garden that I saw. And I was like, there's a few different themed gardens, and there's probably more but there's some that I thought off of the top of my head. And I was like, this would make a great radio show topic. And with everything we've had going on, I still very much enjoy gardening, but I haven't felt inspired to try something new for a while. And I was like, I feel inspired to try what's called a goth garden, which we will get into, or goth plants, especially on our little porch outside, which one of the plants we're growing is purslane weeds through compost bags.
Yes.
So I would like to, next spring, kind of bring some life back to it and have a nice little garden out there. I go out there and I sit and I do stretches and yoga and stuff like that. And as much as I appreciate those purslane weeds, I would like something that's a little bit nicer. So, one themed garden is a space-saving, unique garden such as a labyrinth.
Now, with all these gardens, these can be edible or ornamental or a combination of both. They don't have to be nailed down as one particular...
Yeah, I think so, except for maybe like the butterfly garden. That's mostly just...
Well, you can eat flowers.
Yeah.
But if you eat the flowers, the butterflies don't come.
Right.
Okay.
So anyway... So a space-saving garden that's unique is a labyrinth, and what you do is you simply construct a continuous path that twists and turns until it reaches the center of a circle, or it could be a square.
Like a corkscrew.
No, it's more like a little, like a maze kind of.
Okay, but it goes round and round and round and round until it tightens up in the center.
Yeah.
Okay, so kind of like a a slinky that you've unraveled.
I took lots of pictures of it.
I'm sure they would love to see it on the radio. We're not.
If you Google Labyrinth Garden in West Bend, Wisconsin, you'll find it.
Okay.
So anyway, Yeah, so it twists and turns. It's not meant to be a maze. It's meant to, you can get in and out of it quickly or easily or whatever. This one was just flowers. Some people put hedges or shrubs, what have you. So we could literally just like walk over some open spots in the flowers if you wanted to, so you didn't have to follow the whole path, which we did to basically get out of it. And this one was fenced in, probably, I'm assuming because of deer. But yeah, it was very beautiful, and it's space saving because you're making these paths, so it gives you a chance to really make a design, and then also plant more plants.
Okay, we got butterfly gardens.
Wait, so we have color themed gardens.
Colored themed gardens. Okay,
so that's pretty obvious, right? Like you want all purple or pinks or magentas or yellows, whatever color themed garden. And then a native plant garden. So this is something where you would have to do research in your own area about what are native plants. And then a lot of times these native plant gardens will cross over with butterfly gardens and or like a rain garden. So you would be able to or like a drought resistant garden, because a lot of native plants are more drought resistant. So that could be a theme as well. And then there's even something called bioswales, where you basically make a trench and then you grow plants in it, and the rain is naturally attracted to the bioswale, and then you don't have to worry about watering it, and then you use the drought resistant plants and the native plants, and then it's very self-sustaining.
When we say native plants, it's very regional based on your geographical area. And you can go to your favorite search engine and type in native plants and put your zip code in, or you can call your local Department of Natural Resources, and they would have some...
Or your independent garden center.
Independent garden center. They would have charts or available information on, here are the native plants in this area. And there can, I know that, for example, here, dill, the weed, the herb, can be an invasive plant in certain areas that they have deemed because of the aggressiveness that it reseeds. We've seen this in our front yard garden. So I don't know if there's any native plants that would be deemed invasive. I can see the crossover that, the state next to you, they have a plant that's native, but you bring it over to your state, it's considered invasive.
Right. But some are regional too.
Yes.
So, yeah. So anyway, I had a thought there, but I can't remember what it was. That's okay. Oh, you can also go to a botanical garden. So they will usually have information about native plants, and sometimes they'll even have like native plant sales. And then
now with these gardens, you can. It's really up to the individual. It can be a lot of work, just like a regular vegetable garden, or you can probably get away with some of these different themes as plant it and forget it, and it will do its own thing.
They also can be perennials and annuals, or a combination. And then you can also do things like growing in pots and containers, or growing more in the ground.
All right. Let's talk about your goth garden.
We got to talk about the butterfly garden.
Okay.
Quick. So butterfly garden is obviously butterfly friendly plants. And so there's a lot of different ones out there. You may have heard of a lot of these, or maybe not. And a lot of these are also native plants. So there's the butterfly weed, or the butterfly bush, purple coneflower. Milkweed is a huge one.
Yes.
Zinnia coneflowers, aster, and then goldenrod, verbena, salvia, latana. And then some of these are not as much well known, is like, I don't know about pieweed. I think that's a southern plant. Lavender, sunflower, milkweed phlox, coreopsis. Dill is actually one, which is interesting. Black-eyed Susan. So a lot of these are like the bright, colorful, kind of petally flowers, or flowers that are easy for that butterfly to land on.
Okay.
So goth garden is basically plants that are dark color. So they would be like flowers that are more black looking, or dark purple.
More earth toned in the...
No, like dark.
Okay, just dark in visualization. Okay.
Yeah, so there's like red sunflowers, which is one that is a lot. And I saw that in the labyrinth garden next to these ornamental peppers that had like black leaves. So that was cool. And then there's different varieties of like roses that are, more black or dark purple or dark blue. So you're thinking like dark colors. So it's not like, they call them goth gardens because that's become like the trend. It's more of like a color themed garden if you think about it.
Well, these gardens, these themed gardens, when we initially talked about this, I thought fairy garden.
Yeah, fairy garden could be a themed garden. Or even like a terrarium.
A terrarium, yeah, that could be done indoors.
Yeah.
Or it typically is done indoors. But there's no, well, yeah, that can't be, because if you can think it, it can be accomplished. Tractor garden, like a themed, like a John Deere or a Case, all plants in that themed of color.
Yeah.
Agricultural garden, I guess you would call it. Farm equipment, implement.
You could plant a bunch of pansies or whatever in an area, or petunias or whatever, and put little fairy furniture, and that could be your fairy garden.
Well, and also you see these gardens where it's the dump truck or a barrel tipped over and all the flowers are spilling out and it looks like water, but they're all...
I like those.
Yeah. And then you can also have them where it's, I don't know if it's succession planting, where the short ones bloom, then the taller ones, and then all in the back, then the sunflowers all are bloomed, and they kind of, it's like a domino, one blooms, fall, and back. So it's something that many people may not think is something that they can particularly do on their piece of property, but it doesn't take much space at all. This could be in a 4x4 bed. This could be along the house, or you can use a whole backyard. There's no qualifications that you have to meet in order to successfully do a themed garden.
No, and some people will even get a certification as like a butterfly...
Monarch butterfly garden.
Yeah. And there's probably qualifications for that, or you can just grow it for your own personal joy. And
depends on the government in your area.
I'm sure there's gardens that will attract hummingbirds.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of different...
Yeah, there's hummingbird gardens, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different options. If you are looking to grow a goth garden, there is, again, the red sunflowers. Here's some ideas: roses, columbine, hollyhocks, dahlias, pansies, and then other sort of ornamentals: black mondo grass, petunias, tulips, irises, calla lilies, elders, dragon arum, which I'm not 100% sure what that is, Rebecca, black coral pea, and then a Zanzibar gem. So you would just look for the dark colors.
And you don't have to do this in the ground. You can do this in containers on a porch patio or deck.
That's what we're going to do.
So it doesn't have to be, I can only do this if I have ground. No, you can do this in large containers, small containers. Keep them watered if it's required, and have at it. And
that's another one, is carnivorous plants. That's a themed garden that you can have.
Desert
a lot of people,
plants, yeah.
Yeah, or succulents. Those are things you can do inside.
There's people listening to the show going, I've got that in the backyard. It's called a desert. Yeah.
Carnivorous plants are deserts?
No, the cacti.
The cacti.
That desert garden.
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you now.
Well, Walton's also has got you. They've got everything you need except for the meats.
Yeah, we are brought to you today by our sponsor, Walton's. We know you care about where your food comes from. Canning and preserving your fruits and vegetables is great, but what about the meat? At Walton's, you can get the equipment, seasoning, and supplies to make sausage, jerky, and any other meat product your way to your high standards. Do you want to make snack sticks that people will actually like? You can go to Walton's, has their own, it's called meatgistics.com, and an informational site where you can make the best finished product. They have a full line of meat grinders, mixers, sausage stuffers to help you go from animal to edible. Walton's everything but the meat. You can use code GROW50 at waltonsinc.com, code GROW50 to save 10% off your orders of $50 or more at waltonsinc.com.
When we come back, it's going to be the chores in the month of October that you might want to do in your garden. You're tuned in to the Gardening with Joey and Holly radio show.
Have a garden question? Give Joey and Holly a call now or anytime 24/7. Just dial 1-800-927-SHOW. If you can't get through, leave a message and they will call you back. Call now, 1-800-927-SHOW.
Grip Sticks produces American-made products with sleek designs and quality materials. Based and manufactured in Utah, they have high-quality and durable products that last a lifetime. They're built beyond tough. Their wool socks come from Rocky Mountain source materials, are soft and comfortable, keep your feet warm and dry, and come with a lifetime guarantee. Even for the most sensitive toes, these socks are made for everyone. High-quality wool socks make a huge difference for happy feet. They fit in with all the many things you do from around the house to the outdoors and beyond. They are comfortable and long-lasting. These socks are great for gardening because they keep your feet so comfortable no matter the conditions outside. It's hard to overstate how amazing these feel to have warm, dry feet as you work in your garden. Designed and manufactured in-house for the best results and quality every time. When you purchase from Grip 6, you're supporting long life cycle products and American-made manufacturing. Check out their belts, wallets, and socks at grip6.com. Use coupon code RADIO15 to save 15% off your order at grip6.com. Pomona's Universal Pectin is a high-quality pectin that gels reliably with low amounts of any sweetener. If you're trying to reduce the amount of sugar in your diet, you'll love Pomona's Universal Pectin. Now you can make healthy homemade jams and jellies sweetened to your taste. You can use sugar or honey to sweeten. Pomona's Universal Pectin keeps indefinitely when stored in an airtight container. Easy to use, versatile, and comes with directions and recipes in every box. Find out more and where to buy at PomonaPectin.com. Also available at natural food stores and online.
Jung Seed Company is a family-owned and operated gardening company since 1907 with the largest selection of seeds and plants online. Use coupon code 10TG23 to receive 10% off your order at jungseeds.com. Again, that coupon code is 10TG23. Wisconsin Greenhouse Company has custom-made greenhouses to suit your needs. Grow year-round. Strongest greenhouses that will last a lifetime. From agricultural to lounging to entertaining. For more information, go to wisconsinggreenhousecompany.com.
Dig planting holes from a comfortable standing position. Step, twist, pull, and plant. Visit ProPlugger.com. You put a lot of time and energy in your garden, but without a rescue Japanese beetle trap, you can kiss that hard work goodbye. Asparagus, annihilated. Raspberries, ravished. Green beans, forget about it. Get those little invasive pests out of your garden and send them where they belong inside a rescue Japanese beetle trap. Now with available refill lures, rescue Japanese beetle traps can be used for multiple seasons. They're made in the USA by the makers of the popular Rescue, Fly, and Yellow Jacket traps. Learn more at rescue.com. That's RESCUE.com.
The Gardening with Joy and Holly radio show is brought to you by the following: Dripworks, Rise Gardens, Grip 6, Bloomin' Easy, Fleet Farm, Waltons Incorporated, Blue Ribbon Organics, Tree Diaper. Find all sponsors at the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com and thank them for their support. Welcome back to the Gardening with Joy and Holly radio show.
Farm and garden, the ultimate comfort. Farmer's Defense has lightweight and durable sleeves to protect you against the elements while farming. Farmer sleeves offer unparalleled protection of arms and skin for any farmer, gardener, or outdoor worker. Say goodbye to irritated skin and sunburns in the garden. Their sleeves offer cooling comfort and protection against the elements outdoors. An alternative to thick clothing, Farmer's Defense has made a wicking material with UBF protection factor 50 plus to protect you from the allergens and scratches. To find all their great products and more, visit farmersdefense.com.
Chores in the month of October that you need to do in your garden. For most of us, well, for some, Labor Day was the end of the gardening season. For others, we extend it out as long as we possibly can in order to get the most out of our garden. Some have already planted fall items and you're harvesting them. And some of us are just waiting for what we had planted in the summer to fully mature and get the most out of the tomatoes or peppers or whatever other things that we might be growing.
Yeah, so a lot of this is just like cleanup, organization possibly, and just finishing off a lot of that harvest. So one of the things that you could be doing that is not necessarily one of those is planting different bulbs or garlic.
Garlic is a staple in our garden, and you can certainly get some from jungseeds.com. Use coupon code TG23 to save 10% on your orders at jungseed.com. That coupon code is 10TG23, 10TG23. You can also get it from farmers market or local garlic suppliers in your area. And it's very easy. You're going to plant it now and you're going to harvest it late June, early July next year. So keep that in mind. Also, the bulbs you're going to plant now and you'll see the beauty next spring.
Right. And that's one thing that I always encourage people to do is think about, what you can plant now, what you can prepare now to prepare for the spring, whether it be the garlic cloves or the bulbs, or even just doing something where if you have maybe perennials that you want to separate, that's often done in the fall, or, you cut down your berry bushes, your raspberries, and then that's a common thing. I think even roses get cut back in the spring or in the fall. And then you can do certain bug protection if you know that, there might be a possibility of insects that attack your XYZ in the spring. You can wrap those things, put covers down, what have you.
If you have problems with tomato hornworm, here's a good time in which you can help decrease the likelihood. One, include bird feeders in your garden. That works wonderfully in order to keep that population of tomato hornworm down. Secondly, if you have been infestated with tomato hornworm, you want to take wherever your tomatoes was planted currently, you want to remove them, and you want to dig the soil, spade or till. What happens is the larvae of these tomato hornworms will bury themselves, or they'll bury the larvae at a certain depth in the soil so they can overwinter properly, emerge next spring, and do havoc again. By disturbing the depth in which this larva is sat in the soil, you will increase the likelihood of diminishing that population by 90%. So keep that in mind if you have the problem, and try not to plant in the same general area next year as you did this year, even with the soil tillage.
Right, absolutely. And then some other things you can do is obviously rake up the leaves, and you can
cover the garden. This
might be, now or late October, whatever it may be, but as you get those leaves, cover up your garden.
Don't put them in the street.
No, don't put them in the street. If you have a shed, if you have a greenhouse, if you have an outbuilding that is used for gardening, maybe you want to tidy that up. Maybe you want to reorganize something. Maybe you want to go through whatever.
What tools did you say in April, May, or June? I can make it through this year with this tool.
Yeah.
They have sales on tools in a lot of places right now. Now might be, or here's the other thing, and I know we're all getting up in age, and getting a belt or a hat for our birthday is not the most enjoyable gift, but asking for a specific garden tool might be more of a mental boost than going, oh, another belt, wonderful, thanks.
I agree, and I do try to think of those things because I have parents who are older, they don't do much shopping online.
And they have so many belts.
And they... And they could go to a
They've got sources,
big box store or a local garden center or where have you, or even like I'm an outdoorsy person in an outdoor store, and I think about things that they can actually go purchase. So if you have a pond, there's maybe auto maintenance for that. And then if you want, and most people will feed their lawn in the fall. That's a huge thing. If you have the space to build a log pile in the back of the back of your garden, and you feel safe doing that with critters, that is
what are we building a log for?
Like a log and leaf pile for a lot of those critters.
Okay,
to live.
The beneficial insects to have housing, because in urban areas,
I'm not talking about like
raccoons and possums.
I'm talking about the beneficial.
You want to build a house for them too, they'll appreciate. But you're looking at in a lot of urban or very city areas, those locations are hard for these animals to find, because many people will just scrape the garden dry, take all the leaves to the street, and it's done until next year. So you're destroying the habitat for these insects. There's good and bad ones that are going to habitate in these or over winter, but it's the balance. You can't have all good or all bad. You need a little bit of both.
Right, exactly.
But if you have too many all bad and not enough good, you're going to have a problem. You're going to have to use some type of additional assistance in order to get everything back in check.
Yes. And then anything like hoses, what's it called?
Irrigation system. Drain your irrigation system. If we're going to shut ours off soon because we don't need to use it anymore. But what you can do is, if you've got an underground, we've got a main line that goes from the house all the way through the garden. It's like 6 inches below ground. It's a 1/2-inch PVC black pipe. And then off of that comes the feeder lines, and they go up in the raised beds. This is all from dripworks.com. So at the end of the season, we will take and disconnect it off the house. And we have a vacuum that blows air in addition to sucks dirt. So we invert it to where it blows air, and we duct tape it on the nozzle onto the end of the hose that was going to come out of the house. At the end of our feeder line, we have a clamp in which we can release, and it allows the excess water to drain out. So we run that vacuum for about 10 minutes to blow as much water out of the line as possible, because if you leave it all in there, it will freeze and it will bust. So by pushing that air through, there's going to be water residual water in the drip lines, but the way we do it and the way we've done it, there's not enough there to damage any of the emitters over the winter. When we hook it up again next spring, everything functions. We're just blowing out the majority of the water. You're never going to get everything blown out perfectly.
Right. So the hoses, and then the water, rainwater?
Rain barrels.
Rain barrels, thank you. Could not think of that word. Rain barrels, you want to drain those, and then any sort of water, whatever, so that if it freezes, it doesn't cause you problems. And then if you have anything like the bird boxes, bird baths, unless you have like a heated bird bath situation, anything like that, you want to make sure you get taken in. And then we talked about the lawn feeding,
which we're guilty of this. Either you clean your greenhouse out or your lawn shed out. Or at the end of the season, there's a certain mentality of going, okay, it's cold, we'll deal with it in the spring, and you shove everything in, and you just hope the door closes, and then you'll deal with it next spring. And that's the way we've done it before. And then next spring, on a nice warm spring day, we'll take and open it up, and everything kind of falls out, and we reorganize and throw a bunch of stuff away. But it's kind of like, okay, we're done. Almost like, 5 o'clock, 4:55 on a Friday, going on a 3-day weekend. Let's just walk away. We'll get it in the spring.
I may or may not do that. Yeah. So then there's that. If you live in, maybe you have some balcony plants or container plants that you bring in the winter, take care of that. Or maybe you put them in a corner and kind of insulate them, whatever you have to do there. And then there's some different houseplant maintenance that you could do now or as it gets into winter, but whether it be to feed those houseplants, separate them, check for any sort of bugs or problems, things like that. A lot of times, when people do certain outside jobs, they do inside jobs at the same time, even something like cleaning their windows. It becomes a habit, a routine that is part of the two things together. If you have some herbs that need to be harvested and dried, you can do that. Obviously, you want to harvest anything that is out in your garden that you will utilize. I remember one year we grew lemongrass that was absolutely beautiful, and we brought it inside. We let it dry, and it was a ornamental lemongrass for us for a long time.
So your experience or your jobs may vary, as we have listeners all across the United States, Hawaii and Alaska, and download capabilities, and we thank you for that. So this just kind of gives you a good starting point. You can always go to your favorite search engine and type in jobs to get done in the month of October and put in zip code or however verbiage you want to put it there, because it's very different in Louisiana than it is in Bismarck, North Dakota. So keep that in mind.
Right. And you might have a different job. You might even plant, I know like in the Super South, they use this time to plant plants that they couldn't grow during the summer because it's too hot. Right. So again, your mileage may vary.
Well, summer's over, Holly. Fall was just last week, and you have forgotten about the lawn, but the kids are in school, so you need to tighten that lawn up before winter hits. Otherwise, you're going to have problems next spring.
Yeah, just because it's fall, we don't want to forget about our yards. Those Japanese beetles, they may be gone, but they're not far. Not only did they feast on your roses and berries this summer, they laid eggs in your turf so that you can start again next year. Take a stand with Phylum Grub Gun. Phylum Grub Gun is a non-chemical BT granular that specifically targets scare pests and their larvae. Simply apply the granule with a spreader, irrigate it into the soil, and let the naturally occurring bacteria do its job.
Not only is Grub Gone easy to use, but it's the only non-chemical choice that effectively controls grubs. And the best part about it, it's non-toxic to bees and other pollinators, the beneficial ones, so you don't have to worry about Grub Gone toxifying their world and killing their hives off. You can get your hands on some Grub Gone at grubgone.com or visit the company at phyllombioproducts.com. That's PHYLLOM bioproducts.com. Holly, who we got coming up next? Moments away, April Ruis will be with us, online garden influencer. You're tuned in to the Gardening with Joy and Holly radio show.
Got a question for Joey and Holly? Send it via email anytime to gardentalkradio@gmail.com.
Need a new mattress? Choose Furlow over the other leading brands and save big, really big. Because hey, nobody ever slept better for paying thousands more for basically the same mattress. Plus, with Furlow mattress, you also get our exclusive lifetime comfort guarantee. Good for as long as you own your mattress. Comfort to comfort, dollars to dollars. Compare Furlow to the others, and it's obvious. You get more bed for your buck. Wake up. Sleep better. Furlow.
Blue Ribbon Organics, providing locally made organic compost and soil blends for gardeners, farms, landscaping, and more. To find our products nearest you, visit blueribbonorganics.com.
Goodbye, biting bugs and plant invaders. No More Bugs by Naturally Green Products is your answer. A product pioneered by the USDA in 14 years in business, No More Bugs has been a favorite by consumers across the country. More than a repellent, it is safe for you, your plants, pets, and home. Visit nomorebugs.net. Free shipping on orders over $50. Use code FREESHIP4ME.
Rootmaker starts your plants off right and keeps them going through harvest. From their seed starting trays with an innovative design that air prunes the roots to their large variety of grow bags, 1 to 60 gallons. Their products will provide you the harvest you've never seen before. Visit rootmaker.com and use coupon code RADIO23 to save 15% off your order at rootmaker.com.
Garden like a pro in 3 easy steps and receive customized fertilizer recommendations for your garden or lawn. Soil Savvy helps you determine what nutrients your plants need to thrive. Never again over-apply nutrients they don't need. A patented process that makes you a smart gardener. To get your soil test kit, go to mysoilsavvy.com.
Worried about watering too much or too little? Tree diaper technology is the best way to stabilize your soil moisture in your garden, trees, or houseplants. Use coupon code GARDEN15 to save 15% off at treediaper.com. The Gardening with Joy and Holly radio show is brought to you by the following: Chapin Manufacturing Incorporated, Aqua-Mart, Soil Savvy, Wind River Chimes, Wisconsin Greenhouse Company, Pro Plugger, Deer Defeat, Dripping Springs Oyas, Phylum Bioproducts. Find all sponsors at the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com and thank them for their support. Welcome back to the Gardening with Joy and Holly radio show. Moments away, April Ruis will be with us. But first, Rise Gardens.
Rise Gardens is a revolutionary hydroponic gardening system for your home. Instead of food traveling hundreds or even over 1,000 miles before it hits your plate, harvest the veggies, herbs, and greens you need for dinner tonight in the comfort of your own home. No green thumb required knowledge, a gardening made easy with the Rise Gardens app, step-by-step guidance from seed to harvest, a complete garden on a shelf, and comes with everything you need to grow healthy and the freshest food for you and your loved ones. Fully customize your garden to your needs and preferences. For more information and get your new gardens, visit risegardens.com.
Holly, let's go to the hotline and bring in our guest for this week.
April Ruis is the proprietor behind Sunrise Farms. She has a YouTube channel and social media following where she talks about gardening, herbal remedies, DIY skincare, recipes, food preservation, and she's a coffee enthusiast. Welcome to the program, April.
Hey, glad to be on here. Thank you for the invite.
Well, we appreciate the information you're about to share, not only with Holly, myself, but all of our listeners. And I'll start with this. How did you get started with teaching others and sharing all of this homemade goodness? Where was that aha moment for you?
Well, I have always been a love of food and gardening, and a few years ago, I all of a sudden found myself in a spot where I was at the house all the time. I became a full-time caregiver, and So the gardening really just became a passion of mine during this time. But also, I was no longer able to socialize with my friends because I was stuck at home. So this is when I first reached out on social media. I just started sharing things on there, sharing pictures. Before I know it, people were just naturally asking me how I was getting stuff done. So I was just answering them the best way I could. And before I know it, it just kept escalating into bigger, better things. I found that there was a world of new gardeners out there who were all of a sudden had 40 pounds of tomatoes sitting on their countertop and they have no idea what to do with them. And that's how I started teaching people how to preserve their food. It was just, it fell into my lap. It was a need, and I was just there.
Fantastic. So what is a recent garden challenge that you have faced, and how did you overcome it?
All right. Well, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we had a hurricane. Idalia, I think was the name of it, came through North Florida, and it wiped my garden out. And I tell you that it was a hard pill for me to swallow. I remember going out there and looking at my garden, which is huge, by the way, and just going out there and just being overwhelmed and just in tears, looking at my garden at all the destruction that was caused. I had to step back from this and I had to approach this garden in a different type of manner than I was used to. I had, instead of looking at the whole picture for once, I had to go out there and just be like, I'm going to focus on this little spot, this little area, because when I would focus on the whole thing, I felt like I was never going to be able to bring it back to its glory. So 10 foot by 10 foot, square foot by square foot, I am just slowly rebuilding this thing from the ground up.
Well, for us northern gardeners who only have a limited amount of time, you being in Florida, is the perception true that we have is that you can just grow year-round, plant, and never have a dull moment? Or is there some times where the heat's too much and you kind of got to back away for a little bit?
Right. There is some truth to that, and there's not. So you can manage to grow all year round. I do try to grow certain things all year round, but the heat really, it just makes it a huge challenge to keep it going. I'm lucky that this is now my job. It's my career. So I get to devote way more time than the average gardener would to their garden. So I get to be out there. But if someone was working for it full time, it would really be a struggle for them to be out there in that garden, in that heat, when the bugs are just terrible down here, and the heat is just terrible, and it's a struggle.
Totally understandable. Sounds like definitely a struggle and a challenge. So you do a lot of canning. What do you recommend for people maybe who haven't canned to consider and before they can, and something you wish you knew before you started canning?
All right. So I get asked all the time, or more or less told, April, I would can, but I am so afraid that I'm going to, kill my kids, or I'm going to put them in the hospital. They're just so afraid that they're going to do something wrong. And I would just encourage people to know that as long as you're practicing safe canning, there's really a very low chance that you're going to do something wrong. Just focus on the fact that you can grow your own food, provide for your family, and be proud that you can do that. And I wish that I knew that I didn't need everything to get started. I remember putting off canning for years, thinking that I had to have everything out there. And I would go to the store and I would just see all the supplies that was available. And I was thinking, no, I can never afford all of this stuff. So I wish that I just knew that I didn't have to have everything at one time, that really I could have started canning with just a pot, some jars, lids, and rings, and that was all it really would have took.
Well, these people who are concerned in which they may poison their family or make them sick, you have just as much of a chance by going out to eat somewhere or just buying groceries that may be contaminated. Your risk is about the same all the way across the board.
That's right. That is right. I've read a few studies. Matter of fact, the study on the USDA website only like 8 people a year are actually exposed to any type of bacteria through home canned foods that actually makes them severely ill. So you're correct. You probably have a higher chance of catching something eating out.
So, who knows where some of that's come from. You made flour from sunflower stalks. Now, this is something new to us. Can you tell us more about how you ended up using it? How did you come up to know that this was something you could use?
All right. Well, I absolutely love sunflowers, and I just didn't want any part of these sunflowers to go to waste. And when I got to the stalk part, I'm like, man, what can I do with this? And at first I was trying to use them as steaks. I found that those really didn't last long and they would dry rot. And I was talking to a friend who was gluten-free, and she told me, she's like, you can make gluten-free flour out of almost anything. And I'm like, anything, huh? So I started doing the research, and I played around a lot, and I figured out that yes, indeed, you could make flour from sunflower stalk. And while it is not an all-purpose flour, it is still a great option, especially for anyone who is gluten-free and wants to provide for themselves, grow their own flour at home. I had some great success with things. I have made peanut butter cookies with it. I have a few videos out about that. I have made cheesecake. I did make a few things that it didn't taste good at all in, like ice cream cones. They were less than desirable. But I think the key would be to play around with it and see what, works for you and your taste buds. And it's a joy to make. It's fun to do with the kids. I homeschool, so I've done this with other kids in the community. And it is so exciting to watch them. They can grow the sunflower, harvest the sunflower, eat all the parts of it, and then make a cheesecake at the end. It's a fun experience.
Well, you found this out from a friend, and we look back, let's say 100 years ago. This was knowledge that everybody knew 100 years ago. I'm just taking a guess. And we've lost so much of this because we're so narrow-minded about, we can only do this or that. When 100 years ago, they didn't have the grocery store, so they had to figure out these things that worked, like the sunflower stalk flour.
That is so true. I find the more that I learn, the more I realize that I don't know. And I wish that I could just go back and have some real conversations with some people, 200 years ago. I feel like they understood so much more than we give them credit for.
Yeah, if we and just in our age now, if we knew what we know now and go back 10 years ago, we'd make things a whole lot better for us, ourselves.
That's right. That's right.
So have you tried any other flours? Like we made pumpkin flour this way.
Pumpkin seed flour.
Pumpkin seed flour. Did you try anything else or just the sunflower stalks?
I recently tried zucchini flour, and I liked the way that turned out. I tried that out this past July, and it was actually pretty good, and it's probably going to stay on my routine a little bit more than sunflowers. I kind of do the sunflower as first of all, it's nice to just know how to do it right, because you just never know when it is that you're going to have to resort to something like that. You never know, and it's fun to have the knowledge and to pass down the knowledge. But the zucchini is, I could plant one zucchini plant and end up with, what feels like thousands of pounds of zucchini. So you definitely can get a lot more flour out of one plant. So I think that if you had to choose a plant to get a gluten-free powder out of, the zucchini plant would be great. And it actually tastes really well.
That's good to know. Somebody asked me about the zucchini flour, and I had never tried it, so I'll have to report that back to them. So aside from drinking coffee, I'm a coffee drinker too. What are some other uses for coffee or the grounds that people might not consider?
All right. So coffee makes a great fertilizer. It is loaded in nitrogen and potassium. And you can just add some coffee grounds to some water and just fertilize your garden. Now, just like with any type of fertilizer, you don't want to be over fertilizing, even if it's, a natural fertilizer. Too much of a good thing is too much of a good thing, and it can be very harmful. So if you get extra coffee grounds, they can be through in your compost. But it's also important to remember that you have to keep the balance of your compost good too. So if you're adding coffee grounds, you have to be making sure you're adding manures and you're adding sticks and green leaves, and that you're adding, a little bit of potash, but never add too much of one thing without it being completely balanced out, because then it's not going to stay hot and it's not going to give you the results that you're hoping for. And also in our gardens, I believe there's like 100,000 different insects in the United States, and only 1% of those insects are harmful. So we don't want to be out there killing all the insects in our garden, because a lot of those beneficial insects are going to eat the bad insects. So anytime that it's possible, anytime that, you're not positive, you don't have a infestation, you can use those coffee grounds to help deter some of those insects, because it's not going to kill them, but it'll help keep them away from certain plants. Now, it's not going to keep all the insects away, but it will keep some away. It especially helps with fire ants, because I don't know if y'all have fire ants up there, but we have fire ants down here. And if you go out in the garden barefooted, those ants just like run to you and will bite you, and they sting you so bad. So I am always throwing out coffee grounds around places that I know that fire ants are.
Well, April, we greatly appreciate the time and the information you've shared with us. How can people follow you and learn more about what you're doing?
Right. Well, I am on several social medias. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And you can find me all underneath the same name, which is April Sunrise Farm, and I hope to see everyone there. Let me know where you came from.
Well, April, thank you so much for the time and the knowledge that we have not only learned, but you've shared and our listeners have learned as well. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And when we come back, it's Your Garden Questions, Our Garden Answers. You're tuned in to the Gardening with Joey and Holly radio show.
Have a garden question? Give Joey and Holly a call now or anytime 24/7. Just dial 1-800-927-SHOW. If you can't get through, leave a message and they will call you back. Call now, 1-800-927-SHOW.
Fall is in full swing, and Fleet Farm is here to help you stay ahead on your yard cleanup. Check out top brands and quality power equipment like Milwaukee and DeWalt. Keep your grass healthy, and with their wide selection of grass seed, fertilizers, lawn sweeps, and lawn trailers. Plus, big or small, they've got storage options to store everything from mowers to garden tools. Get everything you need for your everyday life at Fleet Farm. Pomona's Universal Pectin is a high-quality pectin that gels reliably with low amounts of any sweetener. If you're trying to reduce the amount of sugar in your diet, you'll love Pomona's Universal Pectin. Now you can make healthy homemade jams and jellies sweetened to your taste. You can use sugar or honey to sweeten. Pomona's Universal Pectin keeps indefinitely when stored in an airtight container. Easy to use, versatile, and comes with directions and recipes in every box. Find out more and where to buy at PomonaPectin.com. Also available at natural food stores and online.
Tree Hugger sprinklers are the ultimate watering device for either your newly planted or established trees and shrubs. Our sprinklers open and close around the trunk of your tree and provide 360 degrees of watering. With our adjustable valve, you can direct the water to your tree's targeted saturation zone. They come in 3 sizes, 7, 11, and 15 inches. You can purchase a Tree Hugger sprinkler at your local garden center, feed store, or hardware store. Go to treehuggersprinklers.com to find a retailer close to you. Or you can buy it directly from Amazon or treehuggersprinklers.com. If you're an independent independent nursery, garden center, hardware store, or feed store, you will want to stock this product. Contact the good people at Tree Hugger Sprinklers, and they will get you set up. Your tree's best friend. TreeHuggerSprinklers.com.
Make watering easy. DripWorks provides quality drip irrigation supplies and equipment to gardeners just like you for all your growing needs across the U.S. and Canada. Purchase online at dripworks.com.
The Gardening with Joy and Holly radio show is brought to you by the following: Happy Leaf LED, Root Maker, Jung Seeds, Tree Hugger Sprinklers, Verlo Mattresses, Farmer's Defense, Pomona Universal Pectin, Natural Green Products, Mantis Tillers. Find all sponsors at the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com and thank them for their support. Welcome back to the Gardening with Joy and Holly radio show. Thank you for being part of the program today. If you got a question, send it on over. It's garden talk. It's garden and question answer time. You got a question, send it on over to gardentalkradio@gmail.com. That's gardentalkradio@gmail.com. Or if you'd like to give us a call, you can certainly do that to 1-800-927-SHOW. That's 1-800-927-7469. This question here, Holly, is sponsored by Fleet Farm and fleetfarm.com.
In your opinion, what is the best houseplant you can buy?
In your opinion, Holly, what is it? I think it's the snake plant or the mother-in-law plant.
Okay, I have my own opinion.
Okay.
So why do you think that?
It's very versatile. It's very simplistic. You don't have to do a whole lot to it. It's part of the succulent family, so you don't need to water it except for about every 2 weeks or maybe once a month based on the humidity level in your house. They come in. There's a variety of different variations of the snake plant. Mother-in-law's tongue plant. There's about 70 species and genres formerly known as, they've changed the name a couple of times, but about 70 different species of it. 70 to 90 degrees in your house, sandy soil. So if you're planting it, you're going to want a cacti mix, and average humidity, grows in shade to partial shade. So you don't need direct sunlight. And it's a very unique up vertical plant. It's not going to drop over or cascade out of the pot. And there's a couple of different characteristics and colors in which you can get.
So I like the Calathea plant. It looks like it's a little bit more tropical looking. There's a lot of different varieties. It's called a prayer plant. It opens and closes to the daylight, responses to the daylight.
Like a flower.
Not a flower. The leaves just kind of
I know, but flowers will open and close.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And I had one working in the office, and then I brought it home.
And it died.
I think it missed
it was too bright.
I think it missed its little ecosystem.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I'm going to buy another one, and I know I will have success with it. I won't be moving it back and forth to the office, but yeah, I like the Calathea plant. It was super easy to care for. I watered once a week on a little schedule, and it just was beautiful, and it was fun, and I would recommend that kind of plant. But mother-in-law tongue, I know, is really popular. I think the best thing is to, maybe figure out where you want to put this plant that you're purchasing,
Yeah.
and then go from there.
And don't overbuy. Don't go, well, I can get 3. Just start with 1.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right.
So another question we have it's from Alon, our friend, Alona.
From listening to us on WAAM 1600 AM, Ann Arbor, Michigan.
So Alona writes in, I was wondering about my Granny Smith apple tree. It's a tall semi-dwarf, looks very healthy, has grown a lot, especially after the deer ate it down a year ago, but has not established any blossoms yet. The tree is about 5-ish years old and has about 6 feet tall. I'm guessing that it will not need nitrogen. And then she talks about the soil test.
Uh-huh.
The tree did have a bad case of aphids this spring, but I took care of that. The tree looks healthy. Then she showed me her soil test. She has for the 2 apple trees, the Macintosh and then the green apple. So it looks like the lack of fruit is likely due to the absence of flowers is either poor pollination or low temperature during bloom.
Yeah.
That's a lot of problems with a lot of apple trees. The other problem with apple trees is that even though it's a dwarf tree and it should bear fruit within 5 years, sometimes it does take longer, especially when it went through a shock with deer eating it. and possible aphids. So it might just take longer for it to establish blooms and then actually fruit. So that is a problem as well.
Well, the bloom thing, because we've seen this in orchards that, you're going to get, that's why, the peach crop is terrible this year. The orange crop is terrible because they had a cold snap or a frost or a freeze as the blooms were blossoming. And the big orchards, and I don't know how practical this is or if it even exists anymore, but I remember growing up where you would hear stories that the orchard would either have giant burn barrels throughout and there would be a staff that would go all night and keep these barrels burning, or they would rent helicopters and fly over it all night long to keep the air disturbed so there wouldn't be any frost or moisture landing on the leaves and freezing those blossoms off. Now, that was 25, 30 years ago. That's a big, having helicopters fly around, there's some money there. Having the burn barrels, probably not so much. A truck full of wood and a couple of friends to keep the heat going, to keep the frost from landing on the blossoms.
Right. Yeah, so there's a lot of things there.
And the shock with all these other things has pushed back that production.
Yeah, there's a lot of things there that could cause these problems. And especially dwarf or semi-dwarf apple trees, yes, they could possibly bear fruit sooner, but sometimes they do take, that full time. So sometimes
it takes women years to have a baby.
Right.
Same thing kind of with plants and a distant correlation or comparison, I guess.
Yeah.
Canning question here.
Yeah, so let's move on to the canning question. Oh, and she did send in her soil test she had done, and it explained kind of what she can do if she needs to for that soil, but it looks like based on that, I think the soil looked pretty good. All right, so the canning question is, I just saw your video on reprocessing jars. If they don't seal, I'm just curious how long we would have to reprocess if we needed to. We would have to reprocess if we needed to. We're new to canning, so I just want to make sure I gather as much information as I can. Thank you, Samantha. Samantha, thank you for your question. If you want to reprocess it at the same time for originally stated. So if the original recipe says to can it for 30 minutes, you'd reprocess it for 30 minutes. And I can explain the reprocessing.
Yes, go ahead.
Reprocessing process. So what you're going to do is, once you've established that jar has not sealed, is you can just usually leave it like on the counter or whatever until it cools down or until the next day. You just want to make sure that it's like at room temperature.
Don't hit the top, because then it's going to seal and you're going to have a false seal. Take and tap the side, and if it shifts across the lid or across the jar, it's not sealed.
There you go. That's a helpful tip. So once you've established that it's not going to seal, then you want to make sure it's room temperature. Then you take your canner itself and you put water in it at room temperature. You put the jars in there while you let the water come to the boil, and then that's when you start the timer. So you could do this if you're doing pint jars. You could actually, if it's just like 1 or 2 pint jars, you could do this in a small stock pot, as long as you can cover those jars
with at least 1 inch of water.
With at least 1 inch of water, or you can just use a regular canner. But that is what you want to do, and then once it becomes that full roaring boil, then you would start your timer for 30 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it may be, and then you would reprocess those jars that way.
Would not recommend doing this with pickles, because pickles are heat sensitive, and the more heat you put to them, the more mushier they can become. Even with the stabilization of the different powders in which you can add to this.
Right. Pickles are one. Cucumber pickles. If it's some other type of pickle,
I think zucchini would probably be the same way.
Yeah. And then also jam. Jam might change the consistency of that when you reprocess it. So things like that you can just put in your fridge and make sure you eat within a couple months. Otherwise, you can reprocess most other things.
Another thing, please stop doing this. And I know I'm going to lose listeners, but stop doing this, turning your jars upside down to get them to seal. We're seeing this on social media now all the time.
Okay. Yep. Absolutely. So then we have another question that came in from a friend of mine, and she was just wondering, she saw on wherever on social media that these people were chopping up their zucchini and just freezing it directly because they were going to put it in soups and or possibly making zucchini bread later on down the, in the winter or whatever. And some of them were, running through a food processor, so it became more of like a zucchini bread consistency, or again, they were just chopping it for soup, since zucchini gets cooked up in soup and it's going to be kind of mushy anyway. And she just wanted to know, is that the best way to do it? And that she'd traditionally been taught to any vegetable you're going to freeze to blanch it. And there's nothing wrong with freezing zucchini once you've put it through a food processor or you've chopped it, but just know once you pull it out of the freezer, it is going to be mushy.
Yeah, mushy. Yeah.
So if you and any vegetable will be mushy.
I guess peppers is one of the exceptions. Peppers don't get as mushy because you can just chop and throw them out in the freezer. You don't need to blanch them or anything. Peppers kind of hold their firmness to a certain degree once you pull them out of the freezer.
I think onions are kind of the same too.
Okay. Well, onions, you really don't need to freeze onions. You got a 3 to 6 months shelf life on such a thing.
Right. So yeah, you can do that, or any vegetable you can also blanch it. Blanching is just basically the process of you take that vegetable however you want it, cut up, put it in boiling water for about a minute, and then you put it directly into an ice bath.
So back to the flipping. Why do people flip the jars upside down? Where is that coming from, and why is these people still doing it?
Okay, so it used to be for when people would line their jars with paraffin wax, and that would help seal the wax.
And make an airtight seal. Yeah, okay.
I don't know why they still do it.
Yeah, I am. I don't encourage social media bullying, but when you see that on there and everybody, hundreds of comments, this is not safe, don't do this, makes you kind of feel good inside.
I'm glad that gives you some sort of satisfaction.
Well, I mean, just like like April was saying in our previous segment, that we've got to learn how to do it correctly. Otherwise, we can get people sick.
Right.
And flipping a jar upside down to get it to seal by putting pressure on the lid is not. There's nothing nowhere ever where that's a safe thing to do. Well, we are out of time, and we thank you for yours. Miss any portion of the program today, would like to revisit it, you can certainly do that by going to your favorite search engine and typing in the Gardening with Joy and Holly radio show, or sending us an email to gardentalkradio@gmail.com, and we will send you a link to the program. Join us next week when we'll be discussing the world of volunteer plants, as well as perennials for your garden next year. Our guest is urban orchard
Our guest is urban orchardist.
Yes.
Susan Poisner.
Yeah, from Canada. And we'll answer your garden questions. So tell a friend about the show, because power is knowledge. And until next week, for
Holly Baird,
I'm Joy Baird, and we will see you in the garden.